Ambassador Ron Weiser, the chairman of the Michigan Republican Party, on the other end of our line this morning. Were your ears ringing this weekend, Mr. Ambassador?
No, I was eating breakfast watching you run across the bridge. That's probably where I would have been.
Believe me, I was walking. It took me 90 minutes to get across that bridge with everybody else. But here's why I ask you if your ears were ringing. President Obama gave a very hard-hitting speech, partisan speech, to a Labor Day union crowd in Milwaukee. Here's a little bit of what the president said about the GOP.
Over the last 2 years, that's meant taking on some powerful interests. Some powerful interests who have been dominating the agenda in Washington for a very long time, and they're not always happy with me. No to clean energy jobs. No to making college more affordable. No to reforming Wall Street. We got in there and put on our boots, and we pushed and we shoved, and we were sweating, and these guys were standing, watching us and sipping on a Slurpee, and then they got the nerve to ask for the keys back. I don't want to give them the keys back. They don't know how to drive. They talk about me like a dog. That's not in my prepared remarks. It's just, but it's true.
Ambassador Weiser, when's the last time you had a Slurpee?
It's been some time.
I should think.
It's interesting speech. Of course, he forgot about the $1.1 trillion deficit that it took to accomplish the things he wanted to do.
He says that the Republicans are the party of no and that they've driven the country into a ditch. He doesn't want to give the keys back. This is really some kind of rhetoric, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, this country was built upon the idea that there's a slow change is the appropriate way for our country to move forward and keep people from having the kinds of fear and trepidation that they do in other countries in the world. And our president decided that he was going to push through everything that he wanted and was in his ultra-liberal agenda without even consulting the other side and coming to any compromises. So he got his wishes, and now he's getting his just desserts, as we see in the polls. Not too popular with the majority of the people in this country anymore.
What does it mean that Chris DeWitt, the longtime Democratic operative, after all, he worked for Governor Granholm, Lieutenant Governor Cherry, Attorney General Kelly, and Carl Levin, those are Democratic heavyweights, is now the senior advisor for the Republican Rick Snyder, candidate for governor?
Well, I think he is an advisor, not the senior advisor, as I understand it. I'm not part of that decision-making process, obviously, but soon-to-be Governor Snyder says we have a big tent, and this is a great opportunity for us to allow Dems to start joining the Republican Party, as they have in the past, and independents, of course, to join the Republican Party, because people are saying that the directions that we want to take this state are considerably different than what all the people you mentioned before have taken this state. So I assume he wanted to understand how to get along with Dems and how to make them part of our party.
One of the polls is showing that Verge Bernero is leading in Wayne County. There were a lot of people who said the mayor was unknown outside of Lansing, but if that poll is true, he sure has made a dent in the city of Detroit.
Well, I mean, Detroit is, as I remember from looking at that poll, he's not as far ahead as the normal percentage that goes Democrat in that city. I mean, normally that vote is like 94% to 6%, and Bernero's lead is substantially less than that. So even inside of Detroit, which is a staunch Democrat stronghold, he isn't able to gather the leads he's going to need to be competitive.
John Truscott, political advisor, is quoted in a story this morning saying that typically these things tighten up, that there may be a big lead in the polls right now for Rick Snyder, but typically as you get closer to election, the number gets tighter. Do you expect that to happen?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's undecideds, and there'll be a few people that flip back and forth, and we expect the Democrats to put out the lies they normally do, or to put out the misdirections, there's going to be a lot of attacks on Rick Snyder because they don't want to give up this governorship they've had for so many years, and they won't do it easily. So I expect that my counterpart at the Democrat Party will use some of the same tactics he used in 2006 and again in 2008 with Cliff Taylor. He just made things up.
Do we have any dates for debates yet at all? Are we making any progress?
Well, I can't tell you. The party's not part of the debate process now.
Oh,
now
I
it's
see.
between the two candidates. And
Okay.
I would expect that there'll be a few debates, and that will give people an opportunity to see both candidates. But interestingly enough, as you look at the polls, in the mid-'80s to the '90s, people already know who these two candidates are. So it's not like it was when we were doing this primary and nobody knew who Rick Snyder was. Now they know who he is, and they certainly are getting a good glimpse at Mr. Bonero, and apparently what they see they don't like from what the polls are saying.
Republican Party Chair Ron Weiser. We'll talk again soon. The ambassador. It's Michael Patrick Shields.